Hey everybody, it's GombletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'll be playing my first Premier Draft of Dominaria United on my personal account, so outside of the early access events. This has been a really cool set so far. It really feels like anything is viable. All of these 10 different two-color pairs have some cool things they can do. You can even play some very splashy decks since there are great dual lands at common in this format, and just a relatively high power level, high complexity format. Without further ado, let's just look over our rare in this pack, which is what I'm going to take. The Haughty Djinn is quite a powerful one. 3 mana for an X4, where X is the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard, and instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. This is just a big evasive threat, a big flying threat. So very, very nice card here. We have really good uncommons in this pack as well. Phyrexian Missionary is absurd. 2 mana for a 2/3 lifelink, already an incredible deal, and if you kick it later, you're returning something else from grave. Micromancer is a great deal. 4 mana for a 3/3 tutor for any 1 mana instant or sorcery from your deck put in your hand. And our other uncommon was also a great deal. The Niall for a domain deck. So now we have a Djinn of the Fountain. This is pretty expensive and it doesn't have any immediate impact when it hits the board. No enter the battlefield effect or anything, but it is quite the game ender. A 6 mana 4/4 flyer that could get bigger. It can protect itself after that first turn you cast it. Seems pretty great. Knight of Dusk Shadow is definitely phenomenal. A 2 mana 2/2 menace. Your opponents can't gain life. That part's just kind of filler text, but being able to buff itself for only 2 mana is really nice. We've got some great commons in this pack as well. Citizen's Arrest is a great removal spell in white. Tellurian Geyser is a great tempo play. We're going to want a lot of instants and sorceries like this to go with the Haughty Djinn. So yeah, Geyser, Djinn of the Fountain, Citizen's Arrest. I think these are some of the best cards in the pack. Knight of Dusk Shadow, very close as well. But I'm going to try out the Djinn of the Fountain. Just a big game-ending flyer here, particularly good with instants, especially if we can get any 1 mana instants. Then potentially we could play this with 7 mana on board, so if my opponent tries to remove it, I can just spend my my 1 mana on my 1 mana instant and flicker it, bring it back to the board and save it. So now we've got some more pretty solid stuff in blue. I don't think there's a huge reason to jump out of blue. Sprouting Goblin is really good, but it's a red-green card, so we'd have to be blue-red-green, which can be a bit difficult when we have double blue in Haughty Djinn and a Djinn of the Fountain. We could take Phyrexian Espionage here, which is a solid draw spell, even if you're not in black. Just 3 mana, draw 2, just a divination there. There's also Soaring Drake if I just want to take a bunch of flyers, but I do want to make sure I get some instants and sorceries to go with both of these cards. They both care about casting a lot of those. So I think I'll take the solid sorcery over the solid creature. That is Soaring Drake. Alright, we are out of blue cards in this pack. Pixie Illusionist is fine if you're going for a domain thing or you're in blue-green where you can kick it, but we're not really doing either of those currently. We could take Gitsu Amplifier to start moving into blue-red spells. This is another card that cares about casting a bunch of instants and sorceries, and it's a pretty solid tempo play, being able to bounce an opposing creature if you play this for 5 mana. So I think Amplifier looks pretty good here. We could also just take one of these blue dual lands that's off color in case we go black or in case we go red. The Aquifer or the Tributary would both be good. Or we could take a Shield Wall Sentinel and speculate on defenders. I have seen that deck be quite good before. But I'm going with the Gitsu Amplifier. Now we have another Soaring Drake. We have a Yavimaya Steel Crusher. Or we have a Molten Tributary. I think I'm just going to take the Molten Tributary, make sure my mana base is looking good here. I like to take these lands pretty dang highly, but Soaring Drake is a pretty solid addition. Steel Crusher's just fine, doesn't make a ton of sense in here. We have a pretty good flyer theme going on, and we want a lot of instants and sorceries, so just a random creature that doesn't really fit the theme would just be a fine addition. I mean, it's not a bad creature, it just doesn't synergize with anything. Shore Up is probably going to be pretty sweet in this deck. A 1 mana combat trick. So this is a cheap instant or sorcery we can get in our graveyard quickly for the Djinn, and it's also a very cheap way to protect the Djinn from removal, either of the Djinns, the 3 mana or the 6 mana one. So it seems like a great pickup for the deck. We're seeing Soaring Drakes everywhere, so hopefully we can wheel some of those. And interestingly enough, the Academy Wall would actually work in this archetype because this is going to let us draw a card and discard a card every time we cast an instant or sorcery, or I guess the first time each turn. but that's a good way to filter through our draws, maybe even dump more instants and sorceries in our grave. Alright, we have a Sacred Peaks, which would be an interesting land to speculate on in case we get any white kicker effects or any domain cards, or just a full-on white card we want to splash, but Impulse is going to be quite good in this archetype, being an instant that lets us pick out the best card out of our top 4 to put in our hand. This is a very good way to make your counter spells better if we pick up any of those, like Essence Scatter. That way we have something to do even if we're not countering spells. And it's just a pretty solid piece of card draw there. Now I'm pretty happy to take a Tolarian Geyser here, 3 mana, bounce a creature, draw a card. This card is great even if you can't kick it. If you can kick it, that's just the icing on the cake. I actually have liked Salvage Mana Worker as just a 2 mana 1/3 to get out there and block some 2/2s or 1/1s, and also help all of your kicker cards get a little bigger, because our deck, maybe we won't end up running any black mana sources or any white mana sources, but we are going to run Phyrexian Espionage, we are going to run Tolarian Geyser, so Salvage Mana Worker would just make it so if we ever draw those, all of a sudden we can still play those kicker effects even though we don't have the sources for them. Impede Momentum is fine in the blue-red spells deck, because it can slow down a creature long enough for you to try to close out the game. I don't think I love that card though. I think I'd rather go for like Volsh Tideturner here, or the Contaminated Aquifer to be fair. I'd like to get some 2 mana creatures, I'll take the Tideturner. But the Aquifer would not be bad at all. Speculative on some more black cards, plus it helps us kick the Espionage potentially. Now we have an Amplifier or a Geyser or an Academy Wall. All of these would be fine additions. I think Amplifier and Geyser are the best two though. I think I'm just going to take Geyser, stick primarily to blue, get more instants and sorceries in the deck. Come on in, Tolarian Geyser. Another Volsh Tideturner or a Soaring Drake. We're doing pretty bad on 2 mana creatures. I've got 2 of them right now. That being said, I don't have a lot of 3 mana creatures either, so I guess I can take Soaring Drake just because I think it's a bit better than Tideturner. But we are going to need to pick up some 2 mana creatures later. Well, Shield Wall Sentinel's a very good card in the Defender's deck, so I'm just going to take a speculative pick there in case we see any of the white uncommon Defender. That is the very powerful reason to hop into that strategy. I'm not a big fan of the Crystal Grotto. I've never liked dual lands that require you, or mana fixing lands that require you to tap an additional land to get your mana out of them. Balmor Battle Mage Captain is perfect for this strategy. A 2 mana 1/3 flyer. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until end of turn. A very powerful card. We could also, if we wanted to, take the Leyline Binding here and splash that in off a couple white sources. That is a very nice removal spell, but I think that Balmor Battle Mage Captain is just so perfect for what we're looking to go for here that I'm not going to pass it up. A great wheel that might not happen would be Tolarian Terror. This card is going to be really cheap in this archetype and just be a big game-ending 5/5 with Ward 2. So big fan of that, but we'll just take Balmor. Oh no, Archangel of Wrath. This is one of the strongest rares in the whole set, a big flying lifelink card that can kill 2 creatures when it enters the battlefield if you're in the right color pairs, but it's double white, so it'd be hard for us to splash. Don't think we're getting there with it, but the only other card we'd play is Impulse anyway, so I could take a speculative pick here and see if I can get a bunch of white dual lands to play this card, because it is certainly worth it if you can get there. Yeah, I'm going to take a speculative pick here. Impulse probably doesn't wheel because it's the only blue card in this pack, so anybody else drafting blue is just going to scoop it up, but it's the only thing we're missing on, luckily. So, speculative pick of the Archangel of Wrath there. It's just so powerful that it's worth considering. Here I'll take an Essence Scatter. This is played pretty well in this format, just 2 mana counter a creature. Counter your opponent's big bomb creatures. There are a lot of cards like that. Haunting Figment actually has been better than I thought it would be also, so that would not be a bad addition to this deck, but I think Essence Scatter's great. Flowstone Infusion has also worked pretty good, so I guess we could take that, but I think we're blue at our core, maybe like kind of just splashing the red. It's possible we could become like blue-white splash red with Archangel in the deck. Then this is a 5-drop, so we could splash it easily, and Balmor is strong enough to splash. Yeah, just in the interest of playing Archangel of Wrath, maybe white becomes one of the core colors of this deck. We really switch things around here. Okay. Talus Lookout is the best blue common, or at least one of them. 4 mana for a 3/2 flyer. When it dies, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one into your hand, the other into your graveyard. So a nice evasive threat that replaces itself when it dies. These white cards would be fine, but Lookout is just better in my opinion. Okay, we've got another Gitu Amplifier, which is quite nice. Timely Interference is also quite nice if you're getting into combat a lot. I don't think it's actually that great in this deck because most of our creatures we're attacking with are evasive, they're flying, so we're not going to have creatures bouncing off each other that often. That's where this card is really good. So this card's actually underperformed for me, not because it's not good during combat, but because blue rarely gets in combat. So many of blue's creatures are evasive, so that's been the biggest problem with this card, so a little sad about that one. I think I'll just take a Gitu Amplifier. There was a fun uncommon defenders built around there, but I don't think we're going for that strategy even though we have the Shield Wall Sentinel. Again, it can be powerful. I think I went 5-3 with a weird defenders mill deck that almost never attacked, and there's some way better defender decks than the ones that I ended up drafting. This is a pretty easy Tolarian Terror. This is a great addition to our strategy. There's a nice Goblin rare, but there's just not enough Goblins in the set to really go for that. Tribute to Urborg is one of the stronger cards in the pack, but we have no black. Monstrosity is just not great. Yep, just Tolarian Terror. Okay, another Tolarian Terror is pretty sweet. Miria's Outrider would be fine. This has been an overperformer. Reach creatures have just been important. I haven't played with this card much, but I've played against it with decks like this one, and just opponent dropping a 4/4 flying, or sorry, a 4/4 reach has been pretty disastrous. I think I'm just taking Tolarian Terror. Yeah, our plan against a card like Miria's Outrider is just going to be to geyser it back to their hand or Essence Scatter it. That's our hope. Amplifier is pretty much a 5 mana card, ideally. There's Coral Colony for going for defenders. Still don't have a lot of 2-drops right now, so I could take another Tide Turner. Again, Miria's Outrider's been fine. Does a bit of damage when it hits the board. White seems to be pretty heavily contested here. I'm not so sure we managed to get there with Archangel of Wrath. Although Argivian Phalanx and Captain's Call are both solid white cards just because of how much white cares about getting a wide board state. That being said, they're not really solid cards for our deck because our deck doesn't really care about that or do that well, so it's just going to be Tolarian Terror. This has been a format that's, I think it's going to have a lot of depth and replayability because your pick order can change so much depending on the archetype that you're drafting. So like, even though I want to get into white a bit here to play this Archangel of Wrath, and even though I think Argivian Phalanx is one of the best white commons, it just doesn't work for this strategy very well. So it goes down in my pick order for this deck specifically. And stuff like that happens a lot in this format, which is really, really interesting. I think that'll lead to a lot of replayability. How every draft you have to really consider the context of the strategy that you're going for in your deck, along with the cards you're seeing in the pack. Some of the recent limited formats have been simple enough. You can kind of just cookie cutter, just be like, what's the best card in this pack, regardless of what's in my deck. It feels like it's going to be harder to do that in this format. Some more specific archetypes, which is very cool. Alright, Haunting Figment, come on in. Jodas Codex, we are not multicolored enough to try to play that. Feels like Archangel of Wrath is not going to get there, most likely. Turning into a regular blue-red spells deck. I'm actually not sure which one of these is the best card here. We've got Electrostatic Infantry, a 2-mana 1/2 trample that gets a +1/+1 counter whenever we cast it instant or sorcery, which seems really nice, a permanent buff every time. Or we have Battlewing Mystic, a 2-mana 2/1 flyer, so just a cheap flying threat that if we draw it late in the game, then we can just kick it and draw a fresh new 2 cards. These are both really good in their own positions. Electrostatic Infantry, great in the opening hand, but bad as a top deck. And then Battlewing Mystic, fine in the opening hand and great as a top deck. I feel like when I contextualize it that way, I take Battlewing Mystic since it's better in more situations. Ooh, Aether Channeler is a heck of a blue rare. 3 mana for a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, you can put a 1/1 flyer on the board, or you can bounce any non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or you can draw a card. Very flexible, very powerful card. A little sad to see it in the same pack as Fires of Victory, because Fires of Victory is an incredible card for the blue-red deck. Being able to be a removal spell and a cantrip at the same time, a removal spell that draws a card when you cast it, is sick, but Aether Channeler, that is just such a powerful, flexible card that I'm going to take that over the Fires of Victory. We have a Protect the Negotiators, which is fine. Much better with white mana, though. Take a Tolarian Geyser. That's about it. I guess a Goblin Picker could fit in here, but I think I'll take another Tolarian Geyser and just really be the blue-red tempo deck. Just bounce every play my opponent tries to land. Got a Golden Argosy. 4 mana, 3/6 crews for 1 whenever it attacks. Exile each creature that crewed it. It's just a 3/6 on the ground, though. The board states can be pretty cluttered on the ground, where evasiveness is pretty important. Weird that this doesn't have flying. It might be okay if it had flying, but it doesn't seem great without it. Crew 1 is pretty easy to do, though, with all the 1/1 tokens in the format. Anyway, I think I'm just going to take a Soaring Drake here, or a Furious Bellow, but probably Soaring Drake. Another Shore Up seems great, as does Essence Scatter number 2. Idyllic Beachfront is interesting, trying to get to Archangel. We could have picked up 2 here, but we'd really need a lot to hit double white. So I think I'm just giving up on the Angel and just going for like Essence Scatter here. Essence Scatter, Shore Up, both phenomenal for us. Haunting Figment is fine. I'm going to take the Scatter. Another Essence Scatter or another Impulse, which is going to make holding up our 2 Essence Scatters easier. I think I'll go for another Impulse this time. There's also an Urtai's Scorn, which is a fine counterspell. The format's slow enough that 3 mana counterspells are not unplayable. So Scorn, Scatter, and Impulse are all great. I'm going to go for Impulse. We could take a blue-white land just so I could like kick my Geysers for 3 life, but that's really... We really don't need that for the Geysers to be good. I think I just take another Phyrexian Espionage or the Impede Momentum. But triple Geyser, I feel like that is probably a better way to slow down my opponent's creatures than the Impede Momentum. I don't think Flowstone Kavu or Steel Crusher are going to make the cut here just because we have so many 2 and 3 mana creatures already. I guess Flowstone Kavu is more likely. Let's go ahead and cut the white cards in the Defender. Probably cutting Automatic Librarian, Flowstone Kavu, Academy Wall. Just cutting to just the evasive threats. A bunch of nonsense here. Mana Work is a little interesting, because then if we have it on board, we can kick the Geysers or the Espionage. Espionage has a better ability when you kick it, making your opponent discard a card. It can be pretty impactful. I could see instead of 2 Tide Turners going 1 Tide Turner, 1 Mana Worker. Another nice late Impulse. Come on in. Protect the Negotiators is good when you can kick it, but 1 Mana Worker I don't think is enough, but I'm not going to play these other cards, so we'll throw it in the sideboard. Ooh, another Haunting Figment. And another Academy Wall. Not unplayable, but I think it is getting cut here in the end. So we need to cut 5 more cards out of this deck. You know what we could do honestly here? Amplifier is pretty solid on 5, but when we have triple Geyser, it's a little bit redundant. And just playing it on 2, just a Kiln Fiend type ability is not that great. And then Balmor, if we're so low on red here, Balmor is really the strongest on turn 2. And with a red splash of just like 3 red cards, we're not going to have that much red mana, so there's times where we could miss on playing it turn 2. We could just cut red entirely and just be mono blue. Funnily enough, I didn't think this would ever happen in this format with the amount of off-color kickers. And dual lands and stuff, but we might have just drafted a mono blue deck. I mean, just looking at the blue cards here is just sweet stuff. And we have more options in the sideboard if we need. We're honestly probably just mono blue here. Our Jhin is kind of our biggest win condition, but we're like a really nice tempo deck, it looks like, because we've got triple Geyser bouncing things out of the way. Most of our threats are evasive, they're like flying. This is a pretty slow card. The Terror we could even play earlier with all these instants and sorceries. I could see cutting the Jhin, and then we would be justified to cut a couple lands here with the lower curve of the deck. So we just like cut a Jhin, cut a land, go for a 16 land build here. Kind of sad. Picked the Jhin of the Fountain pretty early in the draft, but I think it's going to get cut here because we're just that low curve, that aggro. Yeah, I mean, this very much can be a deck here. Turn all these islands fancy. We don't have any super difficult mana costs, so I might, just for our Battlewing Mystic, I might put another mountain in here. So we have 2 red sources and a salvaged mana worker. Because this is a really, really good card. If you top deck this in a top deck war, you're putting a 2/1 flyer on the board and drawing 2 cards. Yeah, I'm gonna put another mountain in here and then we'll call it a deck. All right, here is a final look at our deck for today. It's gonna be basically a mono blue deck, a tiny, tiny, tiny red splash just for the kicker ability on the Battlewing Mystic. But overall, just a really nice mono blue tempo deck. We're just playing a bunch of cheap creatures that are evasive and hard to block, like Battlewing Mystic, Double Haunting Figment, Haughty Jhin, Soaring Drake, and then just trying to keep our opponent off their game plan while we end the game with all those cards. We have cards like Aether Channeler bouncing our opponent's creatures, Triple Geyser bouncing their creatures, Double Essence Scatter to counter their big plays for cheap, and then once we've cast a bunch of our cheap instants and sorceries, we can start dropping down these big old Tellurian Terrors to control things on the ground while we chip away at our opponent in the sky. This is going to be a really nice mono blue tempo deck, and I'm very excited to see how it does as we head into the gameplay. Here we are, game 1, opponent's on the play, which means we are on the draw. We only need 1 more mana to be able to cast everything in this hand, and we're on the draw, so a definite keep. 3 castable spells even without drawing a land, one of which can dig us to it. Opponent goes for turn 2 Wrath. You hate to see it. Wrath is a very nice card. And a pretty aggressive card, a very nice ability. Being able to give the whole board +1/+1 vigilance. And if they get more creatures on board, they can start drawing cards every time they cast an instant or sorcery. So Wrath is a pretty threatening start to a game. No turn 3 follow-up, that is good for us. I'll just send the Mystic in and probably just draw a couple cards. Most of what we have in hand is really just good at bouncing our opponent's bigger plays. If our opponent has the uncommon blue-white counterspell, we're in for some pain here, because that is very good with Wrath. That would be 2 premier blue-white uncommons, turn 2, turn 3, and of course they do. That's pretty horrible. Alright. They still have all their mana up for more potential counterspells. Just drop our Lookout here. We expect Essence Scatter from them or something. Could play Mana Worker, which blocks perfectly well, and I can Impulse, and then if they have counterspells, they have to counter one of the weak cards in our hand. Joint Exploration, it's going to be Scry 2, draw a card. Miss out on a card draw from Wrath there to hit us for 2 last turn. Pretty fine with that. But that might mean our opponent has some aggressive follow-up plays in hand. They're just trying to chip in for some quick damage here. So we should be a little concerned about that. I think with Aether, Channeler, and Geyser, I'm feeling a little safe. If we can get these cards to resolve. Oh yeah, that's going to be a good card to bounce. The 5-drop. And our opponent can't attack into the 1/3 now. Yeah, feeling good. Now we've got the Impulse into the Djinn for the future. Could take the Essence Scatter instead, and if I draw a land, then I get to Tolarian Geyser their creature and then scatter it next turn. I do have threats without the Djinn. This might be a little greedy, but I'm going to take Scatter. Even if I don't hit the land, Scatter is going to be a good card to have in the future. And I'm not going to be casting the Djinn anytime soon anyway, because I'm going to always want to bounce this thing so they don't get any 1/1s off of it. So we Geyser instead of Channeler so that I draw a card when I cast this and potentially hit a land. I did hit a land, but not exactly what I was aiming for. A little unfortunate, but not terrible. Now I can bounce it with Channeler and hold up Scatter. Although they'll have 1 mana up this time, so if they have their own shore up, their own little 1 mana trick, they get to use it here. And I feel like they have something, because it didn't just auto skip through their turn, I think. I think they had to slam the skip button. Can't really play around much anyway, though, so we'll just go for it. No shore up. Alright, they do not have shore up. Alright, well, we're doing our thing. Stopping all their plays and just chipping in with our flyer. I'm just going to pass the turn here. Just play interactively, okay. Got 5 mana up here. I can Espionage and Figments. I could kick an Espionage. I think I'll just play a Figments. I want to hold up Essence Scatter here. I could play Espionage and hold up Scatter too, but Figment's going to be unblockable. So we have plenty, well, we have a spell to cast during our turn to trigger the unblockability. Prayer of Binding. Gonna exile the Figment here and gain 2 life. The gain 2 life, the most important part of that one, or the most annoying part of that one for sure. Hopefully no negate here. They do not have a negate, so we will counter the big flyer. And now they just have a 1/3 on the ground, so we get to keep chipping in with the Mystic. Now we really get to show off the power of Tolarian Terror. So we get to cast Espionage and cast Terror for 2 mana. I could also play Terror and just hold up Shore Up. If I want to get greedy with Espionage, wait till I can make my opponent discard a card. And I could also just play another flyer. Honestly, yeah, a flyer might just be better right now. But yeah, I mean, take a look at that. 3 mana, 5/5 Ward 2. Phenomenal card. Shore Up feels pretty good here. Counter that spell so they don't draw a card either. It no longer has illegal targets. They did draw a card off of Wrath, that's why they still drew one. They've got their own Tolarian Terror, but luckily that card is on the ground. Make them discard their last card in hand here and then just trump block the Terror. That is pretty appealing to me. Thanks to the Mana Worker helping with that kicker. It's just a Plains, but it could have been terrifying. And now Tolarian Terror is 1 mana anyway, so I can still just cast Tolarian Terror. 1 mana, 5/5 Ward 2, let's go. That's pretty sick. Alright, buff everything with Wrath. slam a chump to be safe. Our 2-1 isn't doing anything on this board state anyway. They've got a chump blocker of their own that can actually block and trade with the Mystic. If I attack with just Lookout this turn, I can attack with both next turn and guarantee lethal still. That way I don't have to lose a flyer this turn. Just in case. Alright, this is their final chance, their final top deck to get away to deal with one of these flyers. We're going to give everybody vigilance, probably try to get us to chump with a flyer, or trade with a flyer or something. But if I just don't do that, I should be fine. I'll just block like that, keep our flyer safe. They pass turn, we attack both flyers. See if it gets there. Alright, they scoop them up. It is going to be 1-0 to start off this draft. Here we are, game 2 with another sick keep. Our opponent's on the play. We've got a Battlewing Mystic for turn 2. And we've got Impulse and Geyser. Talarian Terror for late game. Opponents on blue-white, they start with a turn 2 Samite Herbalist. Blue, white, and red from our opponent. We'll drop a Soaring Drake here. It threatens to block Herbalist and kill it, so they can't attack in if they don't have a trick. Sunbathing Rootwalla is the next card that is going to get +4/+4 off the domain right now. We've got a really, really great start on that. Could attack with everybody in the sky and bounce one of these cards with Geyser. Or I could hold up Shore Up and just Impulse. Kind of exciting. Could also Figment and hold up Shore Up. Yeah, let's keep spitting out creatures right now. More mana would help us get to Terror, but everything else we can still cast a spell each turn. So I could attempt to untap Drake and block here, but they have Wooburg. They have 1 mana of every color right now, so there's really all kinds of tricks they could have here, so I think I just take 2 damage and save Shore Up for if they have removal right now. Timeless Lotus. Alright, opponent's got some great mana here, that's for sure. That's a little awkward. I think we save Geyser for whatever creatures are playing here. I'm not that worried about Rootwalla. We could just main phase an Impulse to hit a land. Oh, goodbye, Jin. Still take the Jin and just hold up Shore Up, hit for 6. They're down to 10. I think being able to hold up an Impulse if we don't need to Shore Up here is just powerful enough that I shouldn't be getting greedy about taking a Jin here. I have more than enough ways to close the game out without it. Just on board right now, we're closing the game. Okay, hit for 1,000,000 here. If they tap a bunch of mana into Rootwalla, but they have like infinite mana with this Timeless Lotus. Alright. Timeless Lotus mana into the Rootwalla. We're getting hit for 9, down to 7. And they're going to kill the Battlewing Mystic as well. Not sure why right now, but I'm going to save that. Maybe to tap us out of Essence Scatter for their post-combat creature. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 damage on board. We can chump Root Walla next turn. Another Root Walla. Okay. I can Geyser and Impulse. So I should Impulse first and see if we hit something better. None of this is better than casting Geyser, so I think we grab another Terror. So I can just double Terror next turn. I die to removal if I do this. I feel like maybe I should attack with one less creature to be safe. So I still have a chump blocker for Root Walla. Oops. Alright, next turn I just cast 2 Tolarian Terrors. I can double block Root Wallas. I guess there was an argument for still attacking with everybody. I would be dead to removal, but then my opponent would be dead on board next turn if I hit an instant or sorcery instead of going to 1. There's one removal spell. They have another one that costs 2 or less mana. If they do, I am dead. Because they have the 4 mana to buff Root Walla. They have 6 mana total right now. So 4 to buff Root Walla, 2 to kill the Figment. Alright, well, we block Root Walla. It's a forced chump block, because if it gets in, I die. They have to spend their green mana on that out of the Timeless Lotus, which means they don't get to cast the other Root Walla in the end step. This is actually kind of good for me. They have to tap the Lotus during combat, so they have no mana left. Main phase 2. I'm gonna get a little extra value off of that chump block. Then we hit for 2 and just play some really hard to kill creatures. Double Tolarian Terror. They're on a... This Herbalist has put in a lot of work, so they're not even on a 3-turn clock because Herbalist keeps gaining 1 life. But they're on a clock. It's going to be a really close game. The Root Wallas are nasty with a high domain count. Our opponent's got 2 here. They've got all the mana in the world with this Timeless Lotus. Joda's Codex. Okay, they can start drawing a card every turn. 5 mana artifact, draw a card every turn if you're a domain deck. I've played around with the card. I do like it in the domain strategies, but it's not even that crazy. Even if you have all 5, it's just pretty good. Because imagine a 5 mana artifact at rare that just said at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. Like, that would be a reasonable card. That would be a fine limited card. There have been blue rares like that many times, and that's exactly what Codex is, if you can get all 5 land types. Okay. Don't love this. I don't have any more threats right now. Maybe this is where not taking the Djinn catches up to us. If we had the Djinn here, closing things out. So if we can't kill them really quickly, Joda's Codex does completely take over the game here, with our opponent drawing 2 cards per turn instead of 1. They have a ton of Vine Shaper Prodigies in their deck as well, which are also 2-for-1s, drawing them a card when they hit the board, if you're in green-blue. That is one of the best green commons, but I didn't put it in my top green commons in my draft guide because it's a green-blue card. It is not a top green common if you're just green. This card is really bad if you can't kick it. If you can kick it, it's pretty good, but at that point it's not really a green common. It's a green-blue multicolored common. So I left out some of the kicker cards like that. I still left the kicker cards that are good when not kicked in. But I think I'd put Tolarian Geyser above Timely Interference now that I've played with it a bit. Haunting Figment's actually a really good draw if we can hit an instant or sorcery here. Opponent has to attack with Herbalist next turn to survive Soaring Drake. And if we hit an instant or sorcery and they don't have any removal, then we attack with both. The GG from our opponent. Does that mean we're dead here? Or does that mean they think they are dead here? Could mean either. Oh, that's the we're dead here. That's the preemptive GG. Shoot us for 5 in the face with Cleaving Skyrider. That'll do it. On the draw yet again. We can drop a turn 2 Figment, draw some cards off Espionage, or Geyser their threat. Our late game beat stick, our Tolarian Terror. Haunting Figment is on the board. Opponent's on mono black so far, still stuck on mono black. Let's draw some cards. Got a Shore Up now for 1 mana. Gonna be great interaction. Alright, opponent kept a double black hand with King Darien in hand. They must have some very good 3 mana plays to keep that hand. I'm gonna have to discard an island here. But we have plenty. Knowledge Sleeper. I am tapping out of Shore Up to play Tolarian Terror, but this has Ward 2, so they're definitely not going to be able to kill this with just 3 mana this turn. So I think it's better to just get that big threat out. Alright, trade the 3-1 into the 2-1. Let's just go wide. Alright, they're scooping them up here. Just kept 2-lander and got punished for it. Did not hit the 3rd land for a few turns there while we had a nice aggressive start. So that'll be 2 and 1. Here we are, game 4. We're on the play this time. Turn 2 Mystic, turn 3 Channeler, turn 4 Lookout. That's a curve. Ooh, now I can even just play Soaring Drake on 3. Save Channeler for later when I need to bounce something. Pixie Illusionist, the 1/1 flyer, big enough to trade into Mystic here. That's pretty annoying, but we'll just trade 1 for 1 here. No blocks. Scared of a Short Up or something. Pretty happy with that. I'm gonna drop this Soaring Drake. If I don't hit a land, I can just drop Channeler and play the Tributary. Illusionist making a black source for them. Blue, green, and black mana available this turn. And they're going to tribute to Urborg, the Battlewing Mystic. Not hit a land here so we can Aether Channeler. Could put their Illusionist in hand, or just make another flyer, or draw a card. I think I've got a good amount of plays coming up. I'm gonna get another flyer. Push the lead here. Illusionist is going to filter their mana again into black for Phyrexian Rager. Take some damage playing that and get a card draw. Play Haunting Figment and hold up Essence Scatter. Next turn we could Geyser to give the Figment unblockable. Just doing one less damage than Lookout would and being much more defensive. Or much more interactive, I should say. It's not exactly defensive, it's pretty offensive. Just trying to counter all their creatures and keep their stuff off the board to hit them more. Haughty Djinn. Could trade into Illusionist here, hit for 3. Honestly pretty fine by me. The Djinn is 1 power, 2 power once I play Geyser. Bouncy Illusionist, but I don't play a creature this turn if I do. And I probably still hit for 3 if I don't attack with Figment. So what are they going to do? Trade with my 1/1 token? Or use a combat trick? Another black spell, another tribute to Urborg. Battle Rage Blessing, okay, that works too. Seems pretty good. Off-color trick. We'll just drop Talus Lookout. Pixie Illusionist has significantly aided our opponent's mana this game. Urborg Repossession, 2 creatures back from grave and gain life in the process. Gonna make it much slower to kill them. Attack for 6 here if I play Espionage. Could also just hit for 4 and play the Djinn. I think I want to do that. And these are cheaper and I could play like both next turn. Actually, Figment into Root Wall is not terrible. But with 2 cheap sorceries to cast in the future to get unblockable with the Figment, it's better to try to conserve every single point of damage I can here. They have 6 mana now, and they have the natural black source. Phyrexian Rager's back. They're down to 8 now, and they've drawn another card. They have 3 mana up. Like Zack's lethal if I just Geyser Illusionist and they don't have interaction. So that's the play. That'll be exactly 8 damage if this resolves. Contribute the Talus Lookout. Sure, I can draw another card then. Another Tellurian Geyser, yeah. Sure. Okay, I've got that Geyser for next turn. For now, I just Espionage because I don't need to bounce these ground troops. And I do it pre-combat to get more damage in. They're down to 2 life. We have a geyser in hand for next turn. That means Figments is just unblockable and kills them. If they only have 1 flyer, I can bounce the 1 flyer and get in for lethal in the sky as well. Feels pretty locked in, but there are some pretty bomby, pretty swingy cards. So there's the Pixie. They still have 5 mana up. Ooh, now I have Shore Up, and that feels all but confirmed now to be lethal. Alright. They did not have interaction for the geyser anyway. So that is going to be 3-1 now for the mono blue deck. God, I really love this format so far. I've played some solid 5 color decks, and now I'm playing a solid mono color deck. Literally, the world is your oyster. 1 color, 2 color, 3 colors, 4 colors, 5 colors. Whatever is supported by the cards you're pulling out of your draft, whatever you're feeling like on the day. Really cool format. Here we are now in game 5, a little bit high on mana here, but we can roll with this. Lookout on 4 is going to be great. We got a mana worker early game to block some stuff. And we're drawing quite well. Now we have a turn 3 play to draw 2. Could even wait till 5 because I do have the kicker mana thanks to the mana worker. I really want to make my opponent discard a card. They seem to be on a very multicolored deck if they're going to play Flurfur's Vine Wall. Yeah, we could play Battlewing Mystic instead here. Hold off on Espionage for 5. That seems fine to me. Because we have a turn 4 play, so now we have turn 4 Lookout, turn 5 Espionage. Got an Aether Channeler at the ready. Let's see if they want to do anything to my Battlewing Mystic. That is a no. No blue mana here, so don't have to worry about Essence Scatter on Talus Lookout. Alright, nothing there. Right, I don't have the 5 mana for Espionage, so probably on Figment hold up Impulse. I am definitely not going to bounce the Vine Wall and give them another land draw. Light Pile, Defender on the ground, that is super fine. I'm going to Espionage next turn, so I'll Impulse right now. Could use one of these lands to guarantee an Espionage. Yeah, Soaring Drake, Tide Turner don't impact the game that much. The flyer would have been fine there. Well, let's just kick this Espionage. Uh-oh. We're still in a pretty great position. But, could definitely run out of gas here. They're down to 6. They're just going to scoop them up. Okay, very nice. They just probably didn't get to whatever plays they wanted to. Maybe they had some other color of plays, because we saw them discard a blue card there. Yeah, probably just like a domain deck here that just hit their green mana only, but did not have any green sources to help them get a different color. They had the Vine Wall to get the Marsh, but was not enough for them, still just stuck on mana there. I guess they're the 5-color Defender deck. That one is really fun. Vine Wall, Blight Pile, and Academy Wall. If they got the White Wall that makes a 1/1 flyer for each Defender you control, we would have been in actually a pretty bad spot, so we're pretty lucky there they didn't have that one. But that'll be 4-1 now. Round 6, another hand that's a little high on mana, but we can roll with it. Cast one of these Impulses, guaranteed to hit a non-land with that. Hopefully a turn 4 play. There's a Phyrexian Rager. Ooh, Haughty The terrors are so good. Having to put Haughty or Tolarian Terrors on the bottom of my library here is pretty rough. This is super bad. These are all my best late game plays. kind of want to take a Terror, because I know I can just Soaring Drake turn 3 and still be attacking with that instead. I don't know, I'm still going to take the Jhin. This thing's just busted. But I think I'm still going to play Soaring Drake instead of the Jhin, since the Jin's only a 1/4. The Soaring Drake's going to hit just as hard, and it might draw removal from our opponent. Coalition Warroot, that's going to get geysered. Maybe not immediately. Guess I can still expand the board with a Lookout or a Jhin. I think I can take its damage for now. It's going to hit me for 5. Because it can enlist the Phyrexian Rager at its side. This thing is a tank. But yeah, now next turn I can cast the Jhin and the Geyser, thanks to Jin's ability to make the Geyser cost 1 less. So we'll just bounce it this next turn. Shivan Devastator. Well, that is a devastating card. Don't think I can beat that. Unless we draw into Essence Scatter so I can Geyser it and then scatter it. But if not, that is a mythic rare level card that will absolutely win this game. Well, I could already bounce it. That's not the problem here. I guess I can double block it. Just does put me in a significantly worse spot. I can't Geyser the Warroot and get a 1/1 flyer to block Devastator here. Unfortunately, so maybe I'm just holding up Impulse here, but then I'm taking a big hit from Warroot, and they could just enlist the Devastator to the Warroot. This is super rough. I feel like I have to just bounce Warroot and try to double block Devastator, but all I need is like a single removal spell or trick to win this game, because this card is sick. This would have been super nice to have a second ago so I could hold it up, but now I cannot. They're black-red. I don't even know if I can afford to try to double block here. The odds are so likely if they're attacking and that they've got a trick or a removal spell. Oh, they just slammed down Warroot. Okay. Alright, well, we got them to not attack us for a turn here. I can bounce the Warroot and hold up an Impulse and a Shore Up. Play an Impulse right now so I can hit with the Figment. Another Figment and another Drake. I think I take another Drake here. Send those in. Okay, so we're hitting for 5. And then we're going to bounce the Warroot again. That trample's a huge deal. Tattered Apparition. 2/2 flyer that they can buff for 2 mana. I feel like if they had a combat trick or instant speed removal spell last turn, they would have done that instead of recasting Warbrute. So I'm gonna try to shore up. Because unless they just top decked a combat trick, I don't think they have one in hand. Or instant speed removal, I should say. Either or. And yep, they didn't have one, so we get to kill the big thingamabob now. Take a Battlewing Mystic. I don't have any red mana though to draw a new hand, so we just take Espionage instead. Yep, that'll get an attack in with Figment, draw some cards. Make the Haughty Djinn bigger. Okay, there's a Geyser to bounce the Apparition, so we can keep getting flying attacks in. I think we are gonna do that next turn. This turn, let's just get more flyers out so that we hit really hard when we bounce it. If I just bounce it right now, I hit for 4, and then they recast, they can buff it up a bunch and kill my Djinn. Feels not as good. Electrostatic Infantry, that's going to get bigger as they cast instants and sorceries. Holding up all their mana for Apparition. We'll just bounce that though. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Not quite lethal. If I cast Espionage, it's lethal though if they don't have instant speed interaction here. This is going to be lethal now. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Got a Scatter now as well. I'm assuming our Haughty Djinn is about to die. This will still have their life total. They do have the instant speed removal. Oh, that is not removal, that's just a scry. And that's just gonna be lethal, all right. That is 5-1 now for the mono blue tempo deck. Absolutely nasty stuff from the Tolarian Geysers that game. Opponent is on the play here. This is a definite keep. Impulse can make sure we hit lands while putting an instant or sorcery in our grave for these Tolarian Terrors. Now we've got our 3 lands to get to the Soaring Drake. So we might hit an all land with Impulse. Or I'll just play a Haunting Figment if I draw that first. Opponent is on Boros. Charismatic Vanguard is their first play. I will offer the trade. Wouldn't be surprised if they trade right now, because this can just always block the 3/2 anyway. Just trade later. But I'm pretty fine with this trade. Keep our opponent off a super wide board state in the early game. This hand plays late game super well with triple Tolarian Terror. So anything I can do to trade creatures early is probably to my advantage in this matchup. Alright, show me the trick. It's 5 mana to buff this with its own ability, so this has to be a trick. And it's going to be Furious Bellow. So we still trade our Haunting Figment into a card. We just trade it into their Haunting Bellow instead of their creature on board. And this way also slows them down. They don't get to play a creature that turn, and with Geyser, now they're just going to have no creatures on board. We're definitely casting Geyser here because we want to draw into a land ideally, but definitely we want to draw more cards. And we did hit a Molten Tributary, which is very lucky. Hit the land off the Geyser, it's pretty perfect. They're going to play an Electrostatic Infantry. Super fine, I've got a Haunting Figment and I can hold up Impulse now. Could also shore up if my opponent taps out and I know that I could kill the infantry by untapping my Soaring Drake. Or if they do that, might as well save it. We're down to 18, they are down to 14, and they're going to replay the Vanguard. We've got the mana for a Tolarian Terror this turn. We'll just attack with both, offering the trade into Vanguard again. They are going to trade into the Vanguard this time. And they're down to 12, and here come the Terrors. Again, this card is sweet, because this card's a good deal at 5 mana or less. And luckily we've gotten it to where it is 5 mana. I can double block to kill the Terror, but I'm killing 2 of their cards if they do. I can also Impulse and cast another Terror this turn, thanks to the cost reduction effect. They are going to double block. Let's Impulse. Aether Channeler's pretty flexible. Impulse is quite nice though. I think we take an Aether Channeler, bounce whatever they try to play this turn, make it real likely we find lethal very quickly here. And this was a 4 mana 5/5 Ward 2, so the second Terror, an even better deal for us. There's a Samite Herbalist. Pretty much just a chump blocker here. I'm pretty okay just attacking into that. I guess if they have another Furious Bellow, they get to kill our Terror, which is not ideal, but they did not have another. We're going to hold the Channeler in hand as a way to bounce whatever they try to block with. But we could also just play it and make a bird, try to go wide. But there are a couple Wrath effects in this format, a couple board wipes that wouldn't play super well into. And luckily for us, opponent just does not have the follow-up plays quick enough. They just stumbled on mana a little bit, while we just tempoed them out and really punished them for it. So 6-1 now, only 1 win away from a 7-win run with this sick mono blue deck. Here we are in round 8, what could be the final round if we find a victory here. We have 2 of our best cards, Aether Channeler and Haughty Djinn. This is a very nice start. See if we can't turn it into a pretty quick victory here. Opponent is on Esper, blue, white, and black. Tempted to hit lands at this point in the game, but I really like 1 mana Essence Scatters with Haughty Djinn on the board. Just hope our opponent does not have removal right now. I guess I could Soaring Drake, and then next turn I can Djinn and hold up Scatter, because the Djinn's only attacking for 1 right now anyway, Drake's attacking for 2. We did hit the 4th land, even without the Impulse, which is nice. Double Banalish Faithbonder, little 1/3 Vigilance Enlist cards. Pretty solid. Get it in the sky, drop our Haughty Djinn, and pass the turn. Holding up a hidden Essence Scatter, 1 mana Essence Scatter. So fingers crossed they play a great creature here and not a removal spell, which is what they did, and 1 mana to counter their 4 mana flyer is an incredible deal. Excellent stuff from that Essence Scatter. Okay, can't quite play Tolarian Terrors. Could bounce a Faithbonder, but there's really no reason to do so. I think I would rather just draw a card or make a 1/1 flyer. Let's make a 1/1 flyer. Keep smacking our opponent here. Okay, they're going to bounce the Djinn. And kick it to gain the life. That's actually kind of impactful, since they got the life gain out of it. Still hitting for 3 a turn in the sky. Don't quite have the mana to play Djinn and Tide Turner, so I just play the Djinn. We're not taking the land early might have caught up to us, but that Essence Scatter did play really well for us. Oh wow. Best bomb in the set. That is a problem. I can't even bounce that, or I'm just giving them another opportunity to destroy me, to shoot more things. This thing's never getting in, so I feel like I might as well kill one of these with it. Oh, guys are just so bad against Archangel. This is really rough. I bounce it, they just replay it. I guess they just shoot my face and gain 2 though. They don't have enough damage to kill either of these. And I draw a card. This is really awkward, but it's kind of my only play. It also gets these terrors into a castable mana cost. If they just play a mountain though, and then double shoot the Djinn, we're a goner. But we're hoping they only have the black source for the Archangel. They kind of have to just recast it here if they don't have other removal. Okay, or another flyer, but I can bounce that one. That one I'm infinitely happier to bounce. Ooh, now we have a shore up. That is super sick. And I get to hold it up off of Tide Turner, so they might not even see that I'm holding up a blue mana, which is always sick. So I get to play the Terror for 3 and still hold up a shore up this turn. This is going to be really good. Feels like we might have just got there, even bouncing an Archangel of Wrath of all things. Okay, Archangel's back. It's going to do 2 damage to something, which is not enough to kill it. So 2 damage to our face. Okay. Still got a shore up at the ready. Attack with these. Chump block, chump block. Shore up. Shore up cannot beat that. Shore up can make sure the Djinn survives, though. Right, because it's going to be 4 power. Yeah, might as well make sure it doesn't die, I guess. But they are going to still have their Angel on board and gain a bunch of life this turn. It's not ideal. I'm going to go Figment and Terror as the best attackers. This Archangel is unfortunately big enough to trade into the Djinn on future turns, since it got a permanent +1/+1 counter. Send it in. This another trick? If I had 100% certainty they don't have a trick in hand, I would just trade here. It's like kind of impossible to race a 4-power lifelinker. If they have another trick in hand, they're going to get us either way. Like I attack into Lookout, they're going to kill the Djinn. That's pretty obnoxious. Yeah, that would have been absolutely disgusting if I attacked into that. That actually worked a lot better going for the block. Because otherwise, like, they untap. I wouldn't even know they had the Angel to block with at that point. And now it's out of the way, so these Terrors actually do attack well. Oh, that was... yeah, that was actually a very nice time to block. Thought that was going to play out poorly for me, but all in all, that actually worked well. Knight of Dawn's Light, that's a really good blocker on the ground. They've got enough to buff it three times. Make it a 5/5 first strike and kill a Terror. Phyrexian Espionage lets me attack with Figment at least. Gets me some more draws. These are not more plays. If I attack with everybody, they're gonna first strike kill 1 terror. They're gonna trade there and take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But then the stupid 4 lifelinking power flyer is just coming right back at me. So I lose a terror and my Drake to put them to 3, but then they go back to 7 and still have the knight to block the terror. I just don't have good attacks. This thing is busted. Yikes. It's probably game. They need 1 removal spell or bounce spell to kill me now. Phalanx on the ground doesn't change much. Island in hand certainly changes nothing. It'll be 6-2 as we head into round 9. Here we are in the final game of Magic for the day. Unfortunately on the draw here, but a pretty good hand. Ooh, they're using the new Dominaria United lands. Very cool. Keldon Flame Sage. Big yikes. Every time it attacks, they exile the top X cards. Well, they look at the top X cards where X is its power. They can exile an instant or sorcery to cast it for free. If they draw just like 1 card off of it, it's a really good deal. If they draw multiple, we're gonna have a very bad time. They could attack with that and just immediately hit like a lightning strike. Then it's gonna be a very uphill battle. Opponent on the play with the great 3-drop here. Alright, they missed the first time at least. That is not a creature. Even though it's basically a creature. Unfortunate, that plays very well into our Essence Scatters. But our bounce spells all work quite well against that, at least. None of these are our bounce spells, probably just take a creature here. Cannot attack into that thing. I guess if they trade, I've traded with their 2/2 flyer. Yeah, because next turn they're putting a counter on 2 things. I could also just play a Soaring Drake. Yeah. And they can't attack into that with the 2/2 flyer. So it's just the +2/-2, yep. It's another card that's been a big overperformer. I would probably put this as one of Red's top commons over the Flowstone Kavu. I still really like Lightning Strike, and quite like the Coalition Warbrute. Sick. Now the Flame Sage gets to dig 5 cards deep every attack. Heroic Charge, that's fine. Hit us for 7, I guess. Still no bounce spell to kill the flyer. Nothing to deal with Flame Sage. Pretty sad way to end this draft. If I hold this back, they're going to enlist this. If I don't hold it back, they're going to enlist this. Kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't. I feel like this is a game and a matchup where being on the play is incredibly, incredibly important. It's already generally pretty important to tempo, but I think we would have had a shot here on the play because then we actually have Essence Scatter up early. And stuff like that. Because we would have played turn 2 Mystic. And then our opponent plays their 2-drop, and then it would be our turn 3, we'd have Impulse and Essence Scatter up. And I could have just scattered Flame Sage and this game would have gone dramatically differently. But there's just not much we can do on the draw against this aggro deck. This tempo is so important to just get in under them. Yeah, we're super dead. I guess there's a Terror. Nothing in grave though. 2 cards in grave. Channeler, we do finally hit a bounce spell to kill the flyer. Which is something. But not enough. 5, 7, 8, 9. Bounce the flyer, double chump. I could return Citizen's Arrest. It's probably better to just kill this thing forever. Because they'll just recast Arrest and kill me. Yeah, very good deck from our opponent. Very good Boros aggro deck on the play. Going to take the 7-win run away from us. Again, a matchup where I think not entirely designed, or not entirely decided by the coin flip, but pretty heavily decided by the coin flip there, being on the draw. Not going to be super winnable. We had a shot on the play though. 6 and 3. It is 1,800 gems and 5 packs. Still a great record and a super sick deck. Can't be too unhappy about that. Just really wanted to get another trophy run here. So I am still moderately sad. But yeah, super sweet stuff from pretty much everything in the entire deck. The geysers were phenomenal, and I found myself wanting to draw them in the games where I didn't. The Haunting Figments were pretty nice, always getting in for damage and always being able to just trade in the 3/2s. Thanks to that vigilance on blocks. Battlewing Mystic never got to draw the cards off of it, but it was always good just having that 2/1 flyer turn 2 to get things started in this tempo strategy. Yeah, every single thing in the deck played pretty dang well. Pretty happy with it. Even the Salvaged Mana Worker got to help us kick some spells there, some Phyrexian Espionages to get our opponents discarding some cards. So really happy with everything in the deck. Really happy with how I drafted that. Relatively happy with how I played. And pretty happy with the results overall. Great draft and a nice way to start the format off. But that is going to end today's video. As always, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send some more of these videos to you in your recommended feeds. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.